We've just got to the morning break of day 12 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 3, Phase 1. We've been listening to the live evidence of Lois, who was a movement justice activist. I'm joined by Lois Austin.
Hello, Tom.
From the Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance, but also somebody who's been mentioned in today's evidence. What have you made of what we've heard from Lois? Just before we start, there are a lot of restriction orders today, so we have to be quite careful about what we say about him.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think he makes some very good points. I think he made a very good point about how we opposed fascism, how we fight fascism, because the inquiry is trying to centre on this idea of violence and disorder, and that we're all a big violent mob, and that's why undercover policing was so essential. And I think Lewis answered that very well when he said, actually, first and foremost, what we were all involved in, we were all very young. I was involved with Youth Against Racism in Europe and the Militant, and Lewis was involved in the Kingsway Anti-Fascist Group and Movement for Justice. First and foremost, it was a political campaign in the areas where the BNP were active to win over young people to our side of the argument, to get the community out on the streets, to isolate fascists and fascist activity. I mean, I'll come on to my evidence tomorrow, but I grew up in Welling, where the BNP headquarters was, so I knew firsthand what it was all about and what was going on. And as soon as they moved in, we set up a campaign to get rid of them. But it was a political campaign. It was a campaign of getting the trade unions involved, mobilising the trade unions to come on protests and demonstrations and lobbies of the council. And also it was about defending our community because of the huge increase in racist attacks, terrible, terrible violence, racist violence in that part of South East London. And it was a political campaign to mobilise the community to isolate the British National Party, and we won and we succeeded, and we did the same at Brick Lane. The BNP never came back to sell their paper again. Well,
I mean, that was a really interesting part of the evidence this morning, because we saw from the targeting document about Peter Francis that he was targeted against Lewis because supposedly Lewis had led the charge of a violent attack on the BNP. And Lewis tells the story of, he organised, was one of the organisers of this public large demonstration. He had his phone number on all the posters, and there were lots of people there with placards and banners, with megaphones, behind police lines, behind barriers, very publicly, very, obviously what they were doing. And then like a group of people who pretending to be fascists, singing Rule Britannia, got ushered in with the BNP and then beat up the BNP. And then Peter Morris apparently, rather than do any sort of police intelligence work, went, the guy who organised the main demo, he must have led the charge. And put into the reports that Lewis was in fact the instigator of the attack on the paper sale, which was, it just, this level of police investigation. It's so basic.
It's wrong. It's all factually wrong. But also, I was one of the organisers of that protest, and we had police permission for that protest. The police knew what we were doing. They knew that we planned to be there, I think, at 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning before the BNP got there, and we planned to occupy their spot. Again, a mass peaceful protest. Trade unionists, socialists, anti-racists, anti-fascists, the community, mass peaceful protest to occupy their spot, to say, we are here, this is our community, you are not welcome, go away. That was the purpose of it. And actually, what actually, I was there, I was right at the front, behind the police barricade, and as Lewis said in his evidence, it was a surprise to everybody when a group of stewards actually, because they'd been around the area making sure we were safe, because Combat 18 and the BNP, but Combat 18 were and are a scary bunch of fascists that have criminal records for violence, and they're very proud of that, a scary bunch. It was absolutely essential to have stewards on those protests to help protect us, people like me and the rest of us. And they basically, what they did was, Lewis is a little bit inaccurate there, because what they did was they actually sort of ran into the BNP paper sale and they ran away. That's what happened. And I think there were 25 arrests arrests and only one person got any kind of prosecution for that. So it just shows it was really very mild. It wasn't. I mean, I've seen worse stuff than that where I live in East London where Millwall play West Ham, you know. It was very, very mild. And you can see that by the video footage, actually. Basically, there was more of us than them and the BNP ran away. That is really what happened on that day.
It's only a short break. We should probably go back in. There's more to hear. We'll do another video at lunchtime. Thanks for joining us. See you in a bit.